Wisconsin, Arkansas. Senator Tom Cotton joins us now. Senator, thanks for holding on with us as we watch the Air Force One about to be wheels up here. He will go to Kenosha with his message. What did you think of what you just heard from the president? How far do you want him to go in stepping in to stem the violence in these cities?
Well, the president, like I and most Americans, support law enforcement in trying to defend innocent lives and property from these rampaging mobs in the streets. We cannot tolerate violence, rioting, looting, arson that we've seen in places like Portland and Chicago, and now smaller towns like Kenosha. So the president is going to Kenosha today to thank law enforcement and to comfort many of those small businessmen and businesswomen who've had their life's work go up in flames over the last week. The president's right that the Democratic governor of Wisconsin acted too slowly. He should have called out the National Guard to support the Kenosha Police Department in protecting innocent lives and property from the very beginning last Sunday. He only did so after 3 days that resulted in so much damage and even more lives lost. So I join the president in commending our law enforcement and, where necessary, our National Guard to help protect the lives of our citizens and their property.
Senator, you have now released an ad in Wisconsin and Minnesota. You're warning the violent mob wants Joe Biden to be elected president. Let's watch this together.
The violent mob wants Joe Biden to be president. Then no one will stand in their way.
So what is your messaging here? Because for a while, it was the case that we were hearing from the Trump campaign, from the administration, was that Democrats, Joe Biden, they're not condemning this violence. But you saw Joe Biden's speech yesterday, and now they are talking about it, and they're blaming President Trump.
Well, Sandra, it's rich that they're blaming President Trump for this violence. I don't think those were Trump supporters harassing Republicans leaving the White House last week, or harassing diners on the streets of Washington, D.C., or trying to set fire last night to the Portland mayor's residential building. Those are violent left-wing anarchists that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris not only refused to denounce by name yesterday still for Joe Biden, but for 3 months, they even endorsed bailing them out of jail. Kamala Harris calling her supporters to support a fund that would bail out accused rapists and murderers. Joe Biden's own campaign staff sent money to bail them out. That's the true beliefs of Joe Biden. That's what his administration would represent. They would persecute and even in many cases prosecute local police departments for trying to protect our citizens, not crack down on the violent mobs that we see in our streets.
So what do you believe the messaging will be on the part of your party? We had Robert Wolf, former Obama economic advisor. He was on this program earlier, and he was talking about the violence. He was talking about Joe Biden's speech yesterday, and he was basically making the case that they're going to say that this is all happening on President Trump's watch, under his presidency. Watch this.
I think Joe Biden stated his case. I know people loved his speech yesterday because he stated facts. It's a fact that crime is up 26% since Donald Trump has been the president.
So how do you respond to that, Senator?
Those aren't facts. It's nothing but spin, because this crime is rising and these riots are occurring in cities with Democratic mayors, in states with Democratic governors who refuse to call out the National Guard if necessary, and under liberal prosecutors who refuse to press charges against any of these criminals. Now, if Donald Trump said, okay, I'll federalize your National Guard and I'll use the Insurrection Act to send in federal troops to maintain peace in places like Portland, what do you think those same critics would be saying? They'd be denouncing the rising tide of authoritarianism and a fascist president. We know that for a fact because when I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times suggesting that the president be prepared to use the National Guard and, if necessary as a last resort, federal troops, the New York Times newsroom melted down because their woke children threw a hissy fit, saying that they needed a trigger warning for that microaggression. So Donald Trump can't be responsible for the violence that is happening in Democratic cities with Democratic prosecutors and mayors if they will not work with him to try to stop that violence. That violence is the result of Democratic politicians and Democratic policies. That's why the American people are rejecting those policies and Democratic politicians like Joe Biden.
Seeing all this playing out, seeing the president on his way to Kenosha this morning, 2 months to Election Day, your thoughts, Senator, on where things stand for your party and for President Trump today?
Well, I think the president is going to go to Kenosha. He's going to try to comfort those who have lost property and had their dreams destroyed and thank law enforcement. That is altogether appropriate. We cannot allow Democratic politicians to create no-go zones in their own communities, not just for the police or for private citizens, but for the President of the United States. And it'll be a simple choice in November for the American people. Do they support law enforcement? Do they want to see public safety prevail in our streets? Or do they want to see 4 years of this radical mob given free rein by Joe Biden's administration?
Senator Tom Cotton, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you.
All right.